This episode of the PubCast is brought to you by the Southern African Parliamentary Support Trust.
And welcome to another episode of the PubCast. The PubCast, where we talk about all issues which affect you, me, and everybody around. Some of us don't have the time to talk about it, but if you watch, you get to learn something. Today, I got an amazing woman with a very, very interesting profession. Her name is Vimbai Mukaronda. Thank you very much. Vimbai Mukaronda. She says she's a social
entrepreneur.
Please explain what that is. Like, I know what a dentist is, what a dentist does, you know what I mean? But please, educate me.
So with a social entrepreneur, basically what I do, I have my hands in so many jars. But at the heart of everything that I do, it's always, I'm trying to be a social worker, but I don't want to do the social work degree. I want to use different mediums to kind of, advocate for gender-based violence and children's rights and human rights. I don't want to say girls and boys, because there's a lot going on there. So I just go for all the rights that can be advocated for. I will do that.
All right. So how do you express yourself?
In many forms. I think mainly it's filmmaking. Okay. So I tell stories. So I'm not going to come to you and say, oh my goodness, we're talking about this right today. I want to put it subtly in the movies that you're watching to get you to think. So I just want to provoke people.
So as a filmmaker, like, you travel.
Yes.
You've seen all corners of the country, right? So explain to me, what is your personal understanding of the issues to do with like gender-based violence? Not only in the urban areas, but like also in the rural areas. Because I feel like it's a different ball game in the urban areas as opposed to the rural areas. Obviously, there's gender-based violence happening, but probably at a higher level in certain areas.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Can you just educate me, please?
That's actually quite true. One of the main things that I've noticed in all the stories that we've been telling and all the things that have been happening, thank you, is that it looks so pretty, right? But like the one main story we've been trying to that I've noticed and I would like to keep talking about more is how we limit gender-based violence to somebody getting beat up or sexual violence. Yeah. But there's a whole lot more that we're not aware of. Things like you ignoring me when I say hi to you. Yeah. That's abuse. Yeah. That's a form of violence. Yeah. In a marital setup where a husband can just decide to ignore you just because they're upset, there's so much that is happening. And in the urban areas, I think a lot has been done by all these NGOs and the police and all these other stakeholders that are trying to talk more about it and bring it to light. But I feel like in the rural areas, a lot more needs to be done, because I think sometimes the perpetrator is actually the person that you're being told to go to, to get help. So how am I supposed to handle a situation like that? So I feel like the rural areas have a lot going on, and their stories really need to be told.
Thank God we've got people like you
right here.
Right? Wow. Okay. Like, is it like? I get it. Like here, like in the urban areas, obviously there are a lot of places. For example, for women's being abused in a house to go, have a lot of support systems and structure. You know what I mean? It's a phone call away. But I feel like in the rural areas, I don't think there's anything like that. So how are these women coping?
Well, some organizations have tried to kind of help the situation by going there, then they do a little play, then a discussion afterwards, which is one of my favorite, mediums that people are using right now. But I think the major thing that we need to do, and this is not just for the rural areas, this is for Zimbabwe as a whole, we need to talk more. We don't talk about these things, there's certain subjects that you're told, so how are we supposed to help a situation like that when you've already told me not to talk about it,
Yeah.
So I think we just need to create a culture of conversation.
Okay. When you mention culture, I might be wrong. I feel like in certain areas, right, cultures, traditions, religions, and all these things somehow protect the perpetrator. you know. And what do you think needs to be done?
Let's bring back the electric chair for starters. Because I mean, you know, I feel like there are no consequences for any of the perpetrators.
Yeah.
You know, the jail sentence sometimes actually doesn't even work. In certain instances, it's little things like, oh, there's no evidence, or because this is hearsay, or because something else has happened. There's always a defense that is set up to protect the perpetrators. So once we remove that defense, once they know that, you know what, once I get caught, you know, it's going to hit the fan.
Yeah.
We need those kind of measures to come into play. That way we can have the conversations. We know that it's safe for me to have the conversation. We know that once I have the conversation, I'm going to get the help that I need. Because it's one thing to talk about it, and then I come to you and I say I need help, and then you don't do anything about it. So we actually need to see the actions happening.
Definitely. You need to lobby to the lawmakers.
Yes.
Definitely, because I feel for these ladies, and especially for the children. You know, like having someone who's supposed to protect you hurt you, but that must be psychologically damaging.
Extremely so.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the one thing that people don't realize is that you hurt me today, but I'm going to keep feeling the effects way later.
Yeah.
You know, for the 9-year-old who got raped and, you know, had to have a baby at that age, they don't understand that, okay, so this is what happened to my body. I've changed. You know, all of these things happening in my head. But 20 years from now, that child is not going to be the same. She may not know that she had the child. They may not tell her. But psychologically, she's been impacted. You know, that print will never go away. Whether you tell her or you don't tell her, it's just going to keep hurting her. So why don't we do things now to make sure that our children and those around us are protected in the long run? Because those are going to be the old people that are going to give you problems.
Definitely.
And then you are busy telling us about how your go will not let you do these things that you're crazy and whatnot. And then everyone says, but it's not what you didn't do what you're supposed to do as the adults.
True. Very true. Okay. Can I ask you a question? Why does everyone look at me funny when I ask a question? Okay. What's your take on women's inclusivity? Right, in terms of in all professions in the country at the moment. Do you think they have a fair share of the pie, or there's still some work which needs to be done?
It feels like the door is open,
Yes.
but we can't enter.
Okay.
So you'll tell us, oh, here are all these amazing opportunities. There's grants for women, there's grants for female entrepreneurs and all of these things. But we can't enter those doors because of the gatekeepers. The gatekeepers will not allow us in unless it benefits them directly. So I feel like we may have moved, but we're still in the same place that we were a few years ago. So we're moving, but we're not going anywhere.
Okay. So you're like, for example, you're in the arts industry, right? You're a filmmaker. 10 years ago, there was probably 1 or 2 female filmmakers, you know what I mean? And now a lot have come out. What's, please explain your struggle. Like, what is it like being a female artist in a country which is predominantly male, which has got male gatekeepers who have got their own agenda? To just explain how life is.
Life is hard.
Yeah.
Life is super hectic for us because I'll give myself as an example. I went to school in SA and I said to myself, you know what? I've got this degree. Let me go back home and see what I can do, you know, to better my country and to contribute positively. I came back and the first 3 jobs I got, I was told I had to sleep with somebody for me to get the job. Or I got the job and then I was told to keep it, I have to sleep with somebody. So we still have that entire sexual abuse in the workplace happening, especially in the arts. And one of the main reasons why as the arts we're struggling like this is because there's no accountability. I'm an artist, that's what they say, you know, where's for people?
They're free, they're loose.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And for people like me, Marasta, what was she expecting? You know, things like that. So, and aside from just the sexual abuse that's there, we've got drug abuses all happening in the arts. And again, those who are supposed to protect us will tell us, you're supposed to do this because you're an artist. So for me to fit in as an artist, I must now, conform to your standards. So there's a lot that is happening that nobody talks about, because if I talk about it, I'm labeled.
And you're blacklisted.
And I'm blacklisted, exactly. So I will not get a job anywhere. My stories will never be listened to by anybody. So we've got a lot of work that needs to be done. And I will applaud the fact that, we've got a lot more females in the arts industry, but their stories are marked with a lot of scars and a lot of sacrifices. And when you compare that to a man, it's nothing, A man is like literally maybe a quarter of the things that a woman like the hurdles a woman has to jump across just to get there. And this is just to get the foot in. You haven't made it yet. For you to make it is another struggle entirely.
That's tough. I never really got it from a female's point of view. And so what do you think needs to be done?
Let's talk. If we start by talking, if I can come up here and say, you know what, so-and-so did this to me and this is what's going on. And then we all know that as the Zimbabwean population, we are blacklisting this man and we're not supporting this man's business. All the other men who are trying to do the same thing that this man is doing will fall in line. So we need to talk about it. We need people to support us. Because, and again, the thing is, it gets really emotional and a bit hectic, because then you look at it from the men's perspective as well. You're like, okay, but because I look at gender-based violence in the holistic perspective, where we look at both the men and the women. Yeah. Men are also going through abusive situations that nobody talks about, and then they can't talk about it, For example, the people who are getting, the men who are being accused of having raped women just because they said something, and then this woman, So it's very tricky, but once we talk about it and we put it out there, and we know that there is support for you, whether you have been proved right or not. There's support for both parties until an investigation is done and the truth is out in the open, and the correct steps are taken. But we need to talk first and foremost.
Okay, let's say we talk, right? Mm-hmm. And the gatekeepers obviously have a cabal.
Yes.
I feel like some of the female artists, right, who have tried to step up and speak out and say, hey, can you see what's going on?
Yes.
They get silenced, because if I'm part of a cabal and we're the gatekeepers, there's no way I'm going to throw one of mine under the bus.
Sure.
You see now. So, I get it. Speaking makes sense. But it will fall on deaf ears if the cabal is the one which makes the decision.
And again, the thing is, if in a group of 10, if 8 of us come together and we speak out, this one person is isolated. So we need the numbers.
Unity.
Exactly. That's the only way we can get anywhere. So until we get to a point where we're all united and we're all willing to actually just move together for one cause, because we tend to be extremely selfish. But once we do that, once we make that decision.
I don't need a jacket.
Oh no, I'm a little bit cold now.
I don't need a jacket.
Please get my jacket though. Thank you so much. Slightly chilly. That's the drink.
Oh yeah. Say what you say before we enter the break. Say what you say. Say it again. Say it again.
I said, I feel like the whole family should be arrested
in the event that the child gets
raped.
Why do you say that?
Because if my brother has the nerve to touch my daughter, and I know about it, and I tell my daughter to shut up, if this was a murder case, right?
Yeah.
I would be an accomplice.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So why should we not treat rape the same way? I mean, hey.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Exactly.
It makes sense.
You may not have killed the person physically, literally killed them.
But
you've killed a part of them.
Yeah.
And you're enabling these people to hurt our kids.
Which is true, because in Africa, a child is not raised by a parent, it's raised by the
Exactly.
whole
It takes a
community.
village.
You know what I mean? So
Exactly.
we're all accountable.
Exactly.
We're all accountable.
That's the
So
word,
if
accountability.
anything happens,
Y'all need to take responsibility.
true.
Yeah.
True. In that way, that means that in that case, we might not even get to this point of abuse because everyone's got their eye out like,
I don't want to be the one, guys. Like, you know what? And this goes for even the churches and the cults and the cultural groups and all of them. Whoever assists, whoever decides that this rape issue should not be spoken about or this violence issue should not be spoken about must also be put to book.
okay, I like how you mentioned religion and tradition, right? I've got a couple of family members, right, who when they do something, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. But to them, they're so fully justified because their tradition or their religion says
Exactly.
do this.
That's the thing.
You know what I mean? So, are you saying that if anything happens to a minor, we're getting everyone from the family,
Yes.
the sabuku,
All of them.
the church leader, and everybody?
And everybody. That's the only way. Because now it's just, we don't talk about it. And then we move on with our lives as if nothing has happened. And then you guys still want to come back and be like, but you should have told Mingi instead of Mingi. No, all of you just get arrested and bring back the electric chair.
Okay, electric chair, unless, only if they're proven beyond
Of course,
reasonable
of
doubt.
course. Yes, definitely.
Yes. I think so. For minors.
Yes,
Yes,
definitely.
yes.
I think we need that.
Alright. Electric chair. Okay, so like, what should people do? Like, with this whole tradition and religion and culture and everything, I feel like it's it's rubbing the law the wrong way. You know what I mean? So how do we get over this little hurdle?
I think one of the things is to learn from how the other countries are doing it. It doesn't matter if you're a Sangoma in South Africa. If you have committed this crime, they will treat you the way you're supposed to be treated.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you're the freaking president.
Yeah.
Everybody is, put in the right space. Everything needs to be dealt with in the correct steps. We need to do that. We need to start learning from what other people are doing, to talk more, to unite. Because again, if the whole family comes and says, "Hey, Waka, we've got Bankuru who did this. Bankuru, this was not right." Bankuru is saying, "No, I'm the head of the family." But you've got the whole family rallying behind this one child. You're also giving this child back their power. Because it has been taken. They've been, whatever choice they had has been taken away from them.
Yeah.
But you showing that, we believe you, we know you, we want to help you, we're here for you. That it has such a huge impact on the child's mind and state of mind at that time.
Okay. Because like from what I'm getting from this conversation, I feel like it's an issue of education.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like someone will go to a sangoma or wherever they go, right? And they're like, dude, I need to make a lot of money, right? Or I want a baby or whatever, right? And then the sangoma then says, okay, you have to then sleep with a minor.
Exactly.
I think there has to be a lot of education for everyone that, if you want to make money, make a plan, go work for
Exactly.
it. Not this voodoo stuff that people are doing. And I was having a conversation with someone earlier, some time ago, and she was saying that, like what you say, those guys should be the ones who should be arrested first of all. Because I'm not defending the perpetrator, right? Get me right. I'm not defending the perpetrator, but I see the perpetrator as someone who believes what this spirit medium has said. And if I do it, in as much as it doesn't feel right, but since the spirit medium talks to God,
then
and God
it must
says
be right.
I need to do this, it must be right. You know what I mean? I feel like people need to be educated. I feel like filmmakers like you should like make people more aware of the BS these people are going through on a daily basis. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't. Some of the things I read and see don't make no sense whatsoever. You know what I mean?
Okay, I hear you. But I feel like it's broader than just the sexual abuse.
Yeah.
You know, in the home setup, you've got the Murora being ill-treated by them Vamwini, because Murora and Vamwini are not supposed to get along. So Vamwini will just come up here and be like, I'm going to sit in the front seat of my son's car. You know, you've got that kind of a setup as well. Then you've got the wife being abused by the husband. She goes kunana tete, the so-called correct channels, and they will still say, "Hey, well, you don't talk about this, you know, things like that." So those are things that are just, we grow up with them. They're indoctrinated in us to say, okay, this is how our culture operates. Even the man getting abused by the wife, there's no way he's going to go to the teachers and be like, who's going to believe that? And like a whole grown man like you, what is this? They'll laugh at you, right?
True.
So it really gets hectic. And in the towns, you know, the urban areas, the wives these days are a bit woke. So you don't find that it's not as bad as it used to be. But in the rural setup, it's hectic. You don't have an option. Yeah. You know, your family's saving grace. If you leave this man, then your family's gonna starve. You know, there's so many different scenarios that are going in these households that we don't talk about, and we focus only on the GPV being the Daro and Murume or Dare, things like that. But it's a whole, you know, like it's a huge subject, a huge topic that we need to always talk about in CAF.
Definitely.
I'm very passionate about it.
Like in the rural areas,
of course not. Say,
no matter what,
you have no choice. He's cheating on you with multiple women. He's bringing all these different STDs and STIs. You just have to brave it up, go to the clinic, get the medication, come back, wafa,
and make supper for him.
Exactly. I mean, and I wish people realized just how easy. No, hear me out. It's so easy for this woman to deal with this man, but she won't. Again, why? Because she was told she's not supposed to. I mean, I'm not giving people ideas here.
No, I get you. I'm getting these vibes that like our culture is great.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there are like too many loopholes for certain people to take advantage of, knowing damn well sure that Dini Baba Mkuru, I sent 5 of these kids to school.
Exactly.
I give you money and I pay for your rent. So all your children is fair game for me. Because even if you try to take it through the correct channels, the buck stops at me.
Yeah. Because I'll just be like, you know what, it's fine. I don't have the money this month. What you gonna do? Now you have to come and be like, Mkuru, sorry. It doesn't work. There's so many loopholes within our system. And again, the thing is, the people who are supposed to be fixing these loopholes are the loopholes themselves. So again, it still comes back to the first things I said. We need to talk and we need unity. We need to talk in numbers.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Electric chairs a bit much, don't you think?
You know what? Yes, it is a bit much.
Yeah.
Okay. The thing is, it's murky waters, my guy.
True, I get you.
It really is
murky
waters.
I get you.
And I get where you're coming from, where you're like, it's a bit much, because I know you're going to say things like, oh, he's also a person, he's got a family, and I get that. But I think the other thing that can also work, and we put aside the whole electric chair thing, is if the person lives to tell the story, he's gonna go back to his homies and be like, yo, guys, please don't even try. Don't even play around with them kids, because, guys, being in jail is not fun.
Yeah.
You know? So all I'm saying is it doesn't have to be the death sentence. It has to be something that makes everybody else terrified.
True.
You know?
True.
And again, this may be an offside. I honestly feel like death is too easy a punishment on a person who has raped a child.
I get you. But like, what if? What if? I'm playing devil's advocate here. What if it was genuinely a moment of madness? and I am fully remorseful. What do you think should be like a suitable?
It's kind of tricky to say, okay, so whose needs need to be looked at more. But here's a child who's trusting you. This child knows absolutely nothing. You're the one who's supposed to be there to lead this child. So whether it's, I don't know, maybe it's and then you go crazy at that particular moment, we can't take it for granted when it comes to children. You have to make sure you're in the right state of mind. I'm not going to drink around children because I know, okay, maybe, things like that. So I feel like we need to be more responsible with our children.
Absolutely.
Do you want your child to be in the position that you're putting somebody else's child in? If your answers are yes to these questions, and you think in your mind raping a child is a good thing, yeah, no. I think Annex is the best place for you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's say a punishment, like the punishment they give someone who murders somebody. I mean, if we could amp up that punishment for someone who rapes somebody, you know what I mean, or someone who repeatedly abuses somebody, and we give him that same kind of punishment, I think that would be a good start. You know, it would definitely be a good start. Then people will be like, "Oh, don't do that. That's 25." You know what I mean? Yeah, I think, you know, that's, and like it works with what you said. You know, that's 25 years of someone really thinking about it.
Exactly, upon action.
Yeah. So yeah, like not just only for sexual abuse, because I feel like there's a lot of spotlight on sexual abuse,
yes, you know, and the physical violence as
well. Emotional, all these psychological, they're all the same, because if I'm the victim, I'm gonna live with this
for years.
So whether you rape me, or whether you're beating on me, or whether you're just talking down on me, you know what I mean?
Not even talking to me at all.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's after, it's gonna affect me for years.
For years, exactly. And that's when you end up having children who don't know who they are, children who struggle to communicate because they were never spoken to. Yeah. I mean, a simple thing as a hug. I was watching some cartoon a few weeks ago, and the guy got a hug from his dad at 30 years, and he spent like a whole day in the cartoon world, like saying, "Oh, my daddy gave me a hug today."
Yeah.
That's the thing. Let's normalize the right things, so that when the wrong things happen, we as a community come together and we fight against this. And you don't have to resort to violence. I think the one major problem that we have is we always think that the right punishment is violence. It doesn't have to be violence. Yeah. There's so many other ways of punishing a person. I mean, look at the people who are abusing other people. They're punishing you by keeping quiet. That in itself is a form of punishment. Yeah. Isolate the person for 3 years. You know, I mean, there's so many things that we can do to fight against the different forms of violence against children and humans. Absolutely.
And I feel like when we fight it, I think more energy should be put on to deterring future would-be offenders.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? So that if anyone gets like a little like idea, like maybe I should try, and that thought will quickly taken out of their mind.
It's like that one person, I remember there's a famous musician who was involved in a car accident, but she didn't have a license, so she had to go to jail because she didn't have a license. But from then on, people took this whole license thing a little bit more seriously, and the same thing can be done in these situations of GBV, where you say, you know what, guys, I don't want to be like me. You know, let's let these perpetrators lead as examples to everybody else. Say, guys, don't try this.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, V, thank you so much for coming through to the PubCast.
It's been so much fun.
I can tell you're enjoying your trip.
I am.
All right. My name is Tate Fizzle. This is the PubCast. I'll catch you.
This episode of the PubCast was brought to you by the Southern African Parliamentary Support Trust.